or colonial regimes. Sadly, post-independence, many SADC states retained these infrastructure, imaging them with poorly resourced judicial system, leading to chronic overcrowding and systematic neglect. Consequently, and across the region, these years of neglect and abandon have made prisons incubators of disease and despair. Contextually, and reinstating what has already been mentioned by Honorable Kati, TB rates in our prisons are 10 times higher than in the communities, as noted by the World Health Organization. This has primarily been attributed to the perennial overcrowding, inadequate ventilation, and general system neglect. Furthermore, Mr. President, it is noted that in 2025, some prisons in our respective countries in our region have inadequate sanitation facilities, such as an extent that 50 female inmates and their children have to share 5 sanitation facilities. Some prisons have become more of deserts where water is scarce and running water has become an elusive pipe dream. HIV, Mr. President, remains prevalent in our prisons. While we have made considerable strides towards the attainment of various national, regional, and global HIV elimination targets, including the UNAIDS 95-95-95 targets, our own commitments under the National HIV and AIDS Strategic Plans, our prisons remain twice at risk. Incarcerated populations face a compounded vulnerability due to overcrowding, limited access to prevention and treatment services, stigma, and the lack of continuity of care post-release. These conditions create an environment where transmission thrives and progress stalls. So I ask, Mr. President, have we truly made progress? If those in prisons remain twice at risk, true progress must be inclusive. It must leave no one behind, not even those behind bars. We must therefore look at this model as at a moment where we commit to a holistic HIV responsive that is just, human, and truly comprehensive. Mr. President said, it is truism that there is a fairly robust legislative framework governing the state and condition of our prisons. These include the United Nations Minimum Rules for the Treatment of Prisoners, Nelson Mandela Rules, Guidelines for Prison Service in Africa, and the Principles Against Discrimination in Prison in Africa. Yet, despite these well-articulated standards, the reality within our prison stands in stark contrast to these ideals. Therefore, I ask again, Mr. President, if these frameworks are so comprehensive, why do our prisons still resemble warehouses of neglect rather than centers of rehabilitation? Further to that, I ask, what will make this model law on prison oversight effective? After all, it is an unable fact that this regional crisis is evident of the disconnect between policy and proactive, where we have failed to implement what we committed to. Evidently, we as honorable members have failed to discharge our tripartite mandate by A, not allocating adequate resources to support the prison system, B, not effectively conducting oversight visits or putting to task those who are supposed to implement the ideals exposed in various legal frameworks, C, not demonstrating any willingness to pursue credible prison reforms, Again, I ask you, Mr. President, are we as honorable members immune from prosecution and incarceration? These questions are the questions, these answers to the questions I posed, therefore lie firmly in the acknowledgement of these contradictions and, more importantly, in their demands for urgent action. Moreover, I believe, and strongly so, that the response to these questions must stimulate our moral compass and direct us towards designing and implementing effective prison reforms. If at all our moral compass fails, then we must be motivated by the knowledge that perchance we are also incarcerated. We serve our sentence in human conditions. Additionally, we must swiftly move away from reaffirming commitments and adopting beautiful crafted communiques, which in practice are electionizing those incarcerated in our prisons. Instead, these communiques must be accompanied by our effective will to transform the lived realities of those behind bars. That is why the modern law on prison oversight becomes an urgent imperative. Mr. President, as I conclude, perhaps this is our Damascene moment, a moment of awakening and reckoning. Maybe, just maybe, we have been blind to the injustice that continue to pervade our prison system. Perhaps we have chosen the comfort to ignorance, clinging to the false belief that most incarcerated are somehow less human, less deserving of dignity and care. Perhaps, honorable members, we live under the illusion that neither we nor our beloved ones could ever find ourselves behind those bars. But justice, Mr. President, does not operate on privilege or presumption. It demands that we see humanity in every soul, even in the most forgotten corners of our society. That is why we enjoined to draw wisdom from the profound words of Nelson Mandela, who remarked that a nation should not be judged by how it treats its highest citizens, but its lowest. We must allow posterity to judge us rightly, not by our intentions, but by our actions. Only then can we truly say we have left no place and no one behind. Mr. President, I second the motion. I thank you.
Merci, honorable. Avant de prendre une pause de 10 minutes, nous allons en finir avec cette motion. Maintenant, nous allons passer à la